to summarise now, but I particularly reflect on work going on in terms of health, in terms of social innovation, all of the work around other technologies and nuclear and so forth. An amazing amount going on across the piece. The festival has also underscored for me the benefit of having 4 universities operating in the county. We've got the three universities based in Lancashire and also a campus of the University of Cumbria. And we've heard from some of those universities as we go through. And it's been clear talking to people just how important the universities are in terms of the work that they do in supporting SMEs as well as other parts of industry. And I have the pleasure of being the Vice Chancellor of the University of Central Lancashire. And I had the pleasure of introducing our session focused on our Engineering Innovation Centre, which is very much focused on being outwardly facing and working with companies, organisations and industry across the piece. The festival has helped us as a board, I think, to further define our role. That's something we've only been operating for a few months, but this has helped us to begin to promote and to sponsor and highlight innovation across the county. And we will look now to help with further exploration of ideas. And as the festival has demonstrated over the last few weeks, innovation comes in very different forms. It comes in very different places, and it isn't just about technology. And one of the things that we as a board want to do is to exploit all of it, or to help the exploitation of all that innovation. But what we've also realized, and it's become very apparent across the sessions, is that we need to be careful with the language of innovation. We need to have a common definition and understanding of what innovation is, because it can come across as a very grandiose title, can't it? That's something that we might perceive that other people are involved with, but we ourselves aren't necessarily involved with. But yet innovation, as I've already said, comes in many different forms at many, many different levels. And the important bit is making sure that we understand what innovation is and that innovation can be exploited in terms of ensuring that we all have the opportunity to optimize and maximize better value as a consequence of that innovation. And we'll talk more about that again as we go through today's session. We want, as a board, to make a step change, both in terms of economic, but as already mentioned, in terms of social development. We want Lancashire to be represented and recognised in national discussions for the innovative activities that we're involved with. We want to promote innovation in and across the county. We also, though, want to encourage the uptake of innovations from elsewhere within the county. Once again, addressing that point of how do we optimise value. We are looking to identify innovation and to align it to the LEP's strategic pillars. And we want to identify distinctive characteristics of Lancashire innovation. What are we known for as a county that is particularly innovative and that is going to give us that additional opportunity? So based on just those few sentences, I think you can see that we are setting an ambitious agenda. The board, to fulfill that agenda, will in itself need to be innovative in its own way. But once again, I'm confident because the festival has shown that we are fortunate that there is very much to draw on across the county in terms of innovation. So this festival, I think, has been a foundation. It has been an excellent showcase for innovation across the county, and it has provided an excellent platform from which the Lancashire Innovation Board can continue or begin and then continue its work in terms of exploitation of innovation as much as possible, that alignment with the strategic pillars of the LEP to drive economic and social development. And I'm very much looking forward to the opportunity to hearing from my fellow board members on the call today in terms of how they think the festival has set up the board with regard to its work into the future. But before we get into that conversation, we do have a summary video that captures much of what has taken place over the course of the last few weeks. I just ask you to watch this and then we'll get into the conversation. Thank you very much. We want to recognise innovation wherever it is, and that means that it's not just about technology. We are interested in things that make a step change, things that are going to make a difference to us, make us more effective, more efficient. We want to bring ideas together. Very often it will be the collaboration of ideas that drive the real innovation. And we may all be doing good things, but if we don't share it proactively and collectively across the county, then we won't derive the benefit. Well, that certainly gives you a sense of the engagement with the Innovation Festival, and thank you to everybody who's been involved, all those people who attended it, but most importantly, all the people behind the scenes who have actually enabled it to go ahead. So thank you very much indeed. What we want to do now is to really introduce you to members of the board and to get a better understanding of where they're coming from and how they see innovation, and the, sort of for them to be able to summarise the work that they've been involved with over the last few weeks. So I'm going to go through them one by one, and I'm going to start with Claire Whelan. And just really, Claire, if you could tell us a little bit about the session that you hosted and any insights that came out of that session for you.
Yes, of course. I think, firstly, thanks very much to everyone for attending my session. It was the Innovation and Manufacturing session, and as Vice Chair of the board, I was really interested in what everyone had to say. So the companies and people on the session all ran businesses, so they're all really very much involved in the day-to-day run of businesses, and it's really helped me to understand innovation. I think you've touched on a few things, Graham, but there was a bit of a lack of understanding, I guess, or a misinterpretation of what innovation is. So we had examples on our session from putting a brush on a floor to remove swarf in a potential aircraft engine, right up to full robotic cells. You know, the range was really key, and some surprising things did come out of the session. I think most companies that did innovation well, in their opinion, had a culture of innovation and an importance around innovation as well. So it certainly helped me to understand what that is, and more interestingly, how that compares with the other sessions that took place across the month, to see if we've got, as a board, any commonality there to help us figure out how we make a proactive difference.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. I mean, it's really interesting you giving those two different examples. The sort of, yes, because as we've said, innovation can be so many different things. It can be an item, it can be something that we invent, but it can also be process and whatever. And it can be very small or actually quite significant, can't it? And we do need to address all of that innovation. Thanks for that. Gaynor, what's your reflection on this?
Hi, Graham, thanks. Well, my session was about financing innovation, and we had a mixed panel. We had some entrepreneurs on there, we had some advisors, and we had some funders on there as well. So it was an interesting conversation. And I think what surprised me was it wasn't so much about the availability of finance, it was more about the challenges in firstly finding it, so working the way through the maze of the funding options that are out there, and then the ability to access that in a timely, efficient way. I mean, the entrepreneurs that we had on there, we had two fantastic Lancashire businesses that have managed to raise finance to move their innovations forward. And the sort of the cocktail and mixture of funding that they'd accessed ranged from angel finance, local grants, national grants from Innovate UK, for example, utilising some of the tax efficient seed investment schemes, right through to the coronavirus business interruption loan. So there was a real mix of funding that they'd accessed. But sort of the common theme throughout the conversation from the entrepreneurs and the advisors was the preparation and the work that has to go into an application for finance, and having access to the support that is available in Lancashire came out as being really important and really valuable. So that was very positive feedback that I took from that. So yeah, it was really interesting, very insightful workshop, and there's plenty of that we can take forward now. And I think that the next step for us would be seeing what gaps there are now in the funding provision, and really making sure that all businesses know what support they can get to raise finance and support their innovations going forward.
Thanks, Gaynor. So do you see the role there for the board in terms of some signposting, what specifically could we as a board do to help with that?
Well, we were fortunate we had Lancashire, a representative from the council on the panel as well, and they were very keen to understand where the funding gaps are, so they can do a piece of work and a bit of research around where can the council step in and perhaps help and see what solutions they can come up with. So that was really interesting feedback, and I think that's something that we can work together with the board and the council, and sort of the collective feedback, not just from my session but from all the other sessions as well, to see what actions we can move forward.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Gaynor, very helpful. And same questions for you really, Natalie, just a little bit about the session that you chaired and the insights that came from that.
Okay, thank you, Graham. So I chaired a session about artificial intelligence, and my session was, I got a chance to join Claire's session on innovation in manufacturing. And as Claire said, it was great to sort of see business people, the actual producers and businesses involved in your discussion. Mine was slightly different, and I had leaders from 2 universities and a business leader talking about the technology of artificial intelligence and also some applications. So we were fortunate to have a representative from the Alan Turing Institute based at the University of Manchester talking about what the Alan Turing Institute can offer. And the message was very clear from them that they want to do more reaching out into the Northwest and to be able to support businesses. For example, as was intimated earlier, you know, businesses have got all kinds of data that potentially they might want to see what the value in that data is, and there's opportunities to work with organisations like the Alan Turing Institute to do some of that exploration. So we started off with that, and then we started to think about applications, and we had Nick Race from the University of Lancaster talking about a project that he's doing with BT, and that project's been possible with funding from my organisation, the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. And basically, Nick told us about how artificial intelligence was part of a much bigger project, but which was playing a fundamental role in helping BT being able to manage the performance of its computer networks much more. And what came through for me from that was that the opportunities for artificial intelligence and therefore innovation can be embedded anywhere in a business's operations, and that sometimes that innovation can take place, as I say, in any part of the business, any part of the processes, and in any sector. And then we had Mike Gibson from Moralis, who many of you I'm sure will know in Lancashire, And he was talking about logistics and about pallets. And, you know, these are things we take for granted. And again, I think it comes back to some of the points that I know were covered in Claire's discussion about innovation. It's maybe a challenging word, it's an unfamiliar word, but innovation can take place anywhere, and it must take place anywhere in a business and with as many people as possible. Because if we don't, then we know that we're not going to remain competitive. So yes, I took away that artificial intelligence was not something I knew very much about. And actually, one of the things I would say to somebody who's perhaps been in the audience of one of these events is perhaps next year when we're doing this again, if it happens again, then think about running a session, because it's a great way actually to meet some people, to learn things. And I've even been able to share some of the knowledge that I've gathered with people that I know. And that's how you can start to build those connections and share knowledge. So I would put that out there for people who are thinking there's a topic that they can contribute perhaps in a future event. Yeah,
thanks. I think that's really important, Natalie, isn't it? We want to make, I think coming through the festival has been this, we want innovation and the work that we're doing to be much more accessible. And if people are put off by it, then it may well be that by chairing a session or getting involved in a session will be a really good way of getting involved. In terms of the accessibility piece, you were talking there about innovation, has to take place. It's the smallest thing and it can take place anywhere. But in terms of accessibility, we're talking about, the Alan Turing Institute from Manchester University and others. How accessible can those bodies be to SMEs and so forth? Because they're sort of inherently daunting, aren't they, on occasion? And I just wondered if you've got any tips for how we can get engagement and overcome some of the potential sort of perception, if you like.
I think daunting is perhaps the right word, and it is actually an observation that I also had from our session, and also reflecting on some of the communications of my own organisation. Today we are launching our new UKRI website, and that's hopefully about trying to improve accessibility. But there's no doubt that something that is just branded as an institute can be, welcoming to some people, and listen, well, actually that isn't for me. I think we do have a job of work, actually, is when we invest in these sorts of initiatives to support the researchers that we invest in, to absolutely focus on accessibility, and to include in their projects and their programs of research ways that do make them more accessible. So I think we do have some way to go, actually, on that. And if members of the panel or members of the audience have got examples where they think actually some of that sort of academic research has become more accessible, I would be very pleased to hear about them, actually, because we can learn from those sorts of examples. In terms of tips, I think there are ways in, small things like following, and I think this is perhaps where the pandemic has had a silver lining, which is there are more webinars taking place now. There are more of these sorts of events being put online, and the Alan Turing Institute does that. And there are facilities at the, say, Lancaster Data Science Institute as well as your own institution, I know, as well. So look, if somebody is curious, I would say start with looking out for those sorts of webinars. They're a nice way in, and start to get to know what's on offer.
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. I think that you're right. One of the silver linings with regard to the pandemic is I think that universities have got far more involved in their communities recently in support of the COVID response, and that goes right across all subjects and all disciplines. So I think there's a definite benefit to that. But I think we're also seeing a challenge being laid down for the Innovation Board in terms of ensuring the accessibility and openness, and ensuring that people can engage with us as a board and vice versa. And so that will help to direct our work, I think, over the coming months. So really, really useful. Thank you. Tony, last but not least for the moment, but thanks for joining us as well. You also were chairing a session. I wonder if you could sort of highlight the sort of the response from that and the key insights that you took from that session.
Yeah, hi, Graham. Sure. I think. Well, I like to think that we were asked to get involved with the Innovation Board, and also with reference to the festival, because we drive innovation through our culture within the business very seriously. When you consider that Panaz produces something like 400 new SKUs a year, over 14 new collections, and that they're all driven by the need for differentiation in our marketplace and by bottom line impact. We do a lot of things that we almost sort of take for granted, that are terribly difficult to actually implement in companies quite often. And I was asked to chair a review of pivoting innovation, so that, for example, as a advanced material company specializing in textiles, we started to diversify into products that were of the moment. So, for example, we have a product which destroys the coronavirus, and it's been used on textiles now very successfully for a number of years, and how we were pivoting that into new product areas. I think that a lot of questions came out of that in terms of how companies can get involved in new marketplaces, how companies can actually drive that sort of type of innovation through their businesses, how to encourage idea generation through organizations, and of course how you can make an impact on the bottom line. So there were lots of questions around those major aspects at the end of it. And I think I'd like to think, and I certainly hope, that people came away with some ideas on how they can utilize those concepts within their own organizations.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I mean, you mentioned there the bottom line, and I guess that links to one of the themes that really has come out of the sessions about how do we unlock value? How do we use innovation to unlock value and to help particularly SMEs, I guess, in that sense. And that's always a challenge, isn't it? Because it's all very well to talk about innovation, but sometimes one would consider that requires considerable effort, investment, etc., to drive innovations. But of course, the return, if we're successful in that innovation, is this unlocking value for money, etc., etc. Can you expand on what you were saying, Tony, and talk a little bit more about how we might be able to unlock value, or how you see the board's role in helping SMEs in this way?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of best practice involved in it, I think, actually, because there's lots of standard operating procedures that people can put into place within their organizations in order to drive that type of culture throughout the business. And taking into account things like, aligned consumer propositions, for example, and, increasing speed to market by stage gating, also about developing business cases around ideas as well, because certainly the last thing you want to do particularly is start to generate ideas and products that really won't have any impact on the business long term. Excuse me.
Reminds me, I was being interviewed recently, on the TV, would you believe? And the interviewer's phone went off. What surprised me more was that he took the call. Tells you how good my interview was going. But anyway, sorry, Tony.
I didn't take the call, Graham. So
I know you're a good man.
Interestingly, I heard something the other night. I was watching a program on social media, and they were talking about LinkedIn and various other Facebook, etc. And really unusually, those businesses were developed out of ideas that actually had no commercial realism at the beginning, and they sort of had to try to develop ideas of being able to turn those ideas into monetary value. So I don't recommend that for people to do that sort of thing, but it's an interesting idea. But I certainly subscribe to the idea of being able to create business cases around ideas and then developing value propositions out of those.
Yeah, thank you. Natalie, I don't know whether you want to come in on that from the EPSRC's perspective in terms of the sort of unlocking value, but whilst you do, Bruce Grieve has put a comment in the chat from University of Manchester, saying that in terms of access to universities, SMEs have a route into his own institution, but I guess there's still that sort of university facade that they need to overcome, isn't there, before they feel confident necessarily. These groups might be in place, but how do we actually engage with them? I wonder if you could touch on both of those for me.
Okay, so I think that in terms of unlocking value, we have, as an investor, been building on university business relationships the last few years through something called our Prosperity Partnerships scheme. And that's where a business, and that's very much a business-led scheme, so it has to demonstrate benefit to the business. It's not a research, it is a research project, but it's got to be something of value to the business. And we now have 45 of these prosperity partnerships between universities and businesses across the UK. And through the universities in particular, I know they've supported these partnerships to build and to grow. And through universities' work, they then apply to us, and that partnership, like as I say, the one with Nick Race at Lancaster, has had funding. So in terms of unlocking value, that's an example of one of the schemes that we have to enable that to happen. It's a classic case of there needing to be a very clear benefit for the business, regardless of whichever investment route it finds. The second question was about accessibility in terms of universities. Yeah,
it was just building on what we were saying before, and Bruce has just put something in the chat saying, that there is a route into the University of Manchester for SMEs, and he says in the end it's usually a case with institutions of just navigating the internet pages. But I just wonder how effective you feel that is, and whether we need to do more, because I think there's still a perception of some barrier, isn't there? But you overcoming that sort of that initial facade of the university and what lies beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very pleased to hear Bruce's observation there. I think that, and I will put the challenge out there to Bruce and to my own organisation, is I do sometimes wonder whether we expect people to come to us and about myself, my own organisation, we are structured around calls for people to respond to, and so perhaps it's inevitable that that's what we expect. However, I think that in our portfolio, those investments that really do make, I think, a substantial difference, really do make an effort to do the reaching out, not just expecting businesses or policymakers to reach in to an institution. So they really do make an effort to do the reaching out. And I think the other thing that's a really important way of engaging, which we tend to forget, is through the teaching route, is through people in business going and doing professional qualifications, doing MBAs, doing research of their own. And that is, I think, it's a very effective but overlooked route for gaining the access into a university and finding the researchers.
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. That again gives perhaps a direction for the board in terms of how we need to link up with other groups, and particularly some of those groups that are looking at the skills side as well, and how we pull together. And something there. So thank you.
So I was just going to say, actually, one of the things that we've just invested in through our doctoral training partnerships is a set of projects trying to find what works in attracting people from different backgrounds into doctoral training. So people who perhaps coming at it mid-career.
Yeah.
That's something we're working on at the moment. And particularly with the way the economy is, that could be something that people need to think about. So that way in, and that's a great opportunity to get to understand how a university works.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Now, we've just been joined by Jane Binnion. Welcome, Jane. Thanks for We're in the process, as you can see, of discussing the things that we've learned during the course of the Innovation Festival. And we've just been going around the group and asking each of the board members to say a little bit about the session that they hosted. What were the key insights that came out of that session? And how do you see us building on that into the future? So I wonder if you'd like to give us your impressions from your session, Jane.
Okay, apologies for late. I was in a meeting that didn't end until 2:30, but I had flagged up I'd be late. Okay, so I was chairing the session on social innovation as I run a social enterprise, and we're obviously really trying to get social innovation recognised as part of innovation, because we have a lot of issues out there at the minute that possibly engineering are not going to fix. I think COVID has shown that we have a lot of serious issues out there. And you will have seen some of the debates that have been going on Twitter, on the news, in government, and engineering is not going to fix those. So we had a really interesting session, and we talked about why people maybe associate innovation with digital and engineering, where that's come from, and some of that, there was some discussion about that may be about the media, about gender, about how it's taught, and that we may need to just be very proactive in broadening out the definition of innovation, because innovation is about doing things new, better, more efficiently, and certainly a lot of social issues out there, we could do with doing those better and more efficiently if we're going to really assist people that need help. So lots and lots of discussion around that. And for me, the issue is, the big issue around innovation is inclusion, and that it isn't a white middle class issue, because I'm from working class background. I've worked in prisons. I was a youth and community worker for a long time, and I'm very clear there's a lot of innovation. It will never get seen or recognised. As I've said before, the young men that I worked with in prison were highly innovative, but that won't ever be celebrated or channeled in a way that it really needs to be. So broadening out that and being way more inclusive and enabling children to recognise that the ideas that they come up with are important and not fobbed off. But how we then take those ideas and do something with them is where we get stuck. Children, young people get fabulous ideas, but then we don't know, or they don't know where to take them. And unless they're married to, or their parents are, I don't know, big inventors or part of universities, they'll just fall by the wayside.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. We during the course of the first half an hour talked a little bit about that accessibility, the definition of innovation, etc. And I think you've just summed it up very nicely. And there's a comment in the chat there that social enterprise is innovative in itself, and we need to perhaps have a social enterprise strategy. And certainly the social enterprises that I've been involved with in the past, and those that have sprung out of universities that I've been involved with, have been inherently innovative. I have to absolutely agree totally with that. So I guess that leads us nicely into giving some thoughts then about what are our hopes as board members for the Innovation Board. You know, why did you join? We're all busy people, so we've got other things that occupy us. So why did you join the board? What are your hopes for it? And how can people best engage with us as a board to feed their ideas in? So maybe if I start with you, Jane, and then I'll go to Claire and work our way around.
Okay, I'm really sorry. I was just reading a question that's come up for me, and it's a very long question. So I'm going to, so please, I'm so sorry, Graham. Can you say that again?
Yeah, I'll pass on to Claire. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think what struck me out of my session and hearing everyone is that we've got a real role to play in collaboration here. There are some people quite vocal on mine around criticisms of not knowing how to work between public and private sector, and also that we can all innovate in our own ways. What's right for one business isn't necessarily right for another, so there's a bespoke approach, but knowing who to talk to and help figuring it out to unlock that value that we've spoken about is going to be really important. So I think we've got the reason why I was interested in joining the board, to answer your other question, Graham, is that I truly believe that that's, if you look at the underlying reasons why people innovate, looking at the productivity challenge that we've got and how we need to compete as a nation and as Lancashire, we really need to engage in this to improve and get better. So I think there's some key kind of themes coming out of this for me. Collaboration, the cultural aspect as well, I think is really important. When Jane was speaking before about youngsters, in fact, that also came up on my manufacturing session, because we were talking about how culture makes a difference in that, and how engaging young people in STEM activities and those kind of activities can basically be a catalyst to innovative ideas long term. So I'd like to see that we can try and help engagement and collaboration by setting networks up, or other items that we can get around as a board, and you know, build on that, Graham.
Okay, thank you very much, Claire. Gaynor, do you want to have a go at that one?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Graham. Yeah, I joined the board really to try and bring something back to Lancashire. I'm born and bred in Lancashire. I've lived here all of my life, but most of my career has been, I haven't worked in Lancashire. And sort of in the roles that I've had, I've always sort of questioned why innovation and Lancashire isn't as high on the radar as it perhaps should be, and why some of the fantastic companies we have in Lancashire, why can we encourage them to showcase themselves more and what they do, and then sort of down the supply chain and with the smaller and the startup businesses, really get them to see what is happening in the region, and get them engaged in the whole innovation agenda. I do feel a bit in Lancashire that there's some great innovations and some amazing companies, but it's a bit of a case of we just get on and do it. And I think just having the ability to really profile and showcase these businesses and get them involved and the whole region involved in that national discussion and agendas around innovation is a great way to go. I think one of the things I'd like to sort of encourage as well as part of my role on the board is helping some of the perhaps smaller businesses understand what is available to them, what support is out there for them, so they know where to go and what help they can get, but also making it really clear and transparent the time and cost implications for them in doing that. So for me, it's very much about the accessibility and the profile and the awareness raising of innovation across Lancashire.
Yeah, thanks, Gaynor. It's almost describing there the board acting as a bit of a catalyst for some activity, yeah, isn't it? I'm particularly struck by there, if you do certain things and you do them routinely, you just consider them to be normal, don't you? Rather than recognizing that you might actually have been quite innovative in doing that, and therefore sharing it would benefit others. So I guess as a board, we need to identify some of those things and begin to unlock it, don't we? And let other people share in that good practice, which we might just assume is the norm, where it clearly isn't. Yeah, fascinating. Tony, same question to you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. I'd be more than happy to answer that one. Yeah, I as soon as as you know, I'm a member of the LEP board, and as soon as I saw the documents relating to the innovation initiative, I was incredibly excited by it. I thought it was a fantastic initiative for Lancashire, because one of the two or three things I'm really concerned about. One is, if you look at the numbers. The GVA in Lancashire is really quite low in comparison to the rest of the country, and also our productivity levels are quite low. So I think that you know, by setting good examples of really good companies that actually do a lot of innovation, drive growth through their innovative practices, and letting best practice rip through our economy. It would be fantastic for everybody, really. It would drive businesses into growth. It would drive them into more, obviously more profitable business. And that means it's more jobs for people, and it means in investing. Sorry, it also means that our, you know, inviting new companies into Lancashire, where we have the infrastructure and the ecosystems necessary to support those companies, is alive and well. And I think that all those things really are really good reasons to be part of this this initiative.
Thanks, Tony. And Natalie, I guess you come at it from a slightly different perspective in terms of, you know, the organisation that you represent, etc. Yes. So what made you want to join the board, and what are you hoping that the board will do as a consequence?
I wanted to join the board because I came into this role a few months ago, and it's a big patch, the northwest of England, which I cover on behalf of the EPSRC. And I too, a bit like Tony, was aware of some of the productivity and GVA figures for Lancashire. And I thought, actually, I'd like to start my journey, using that word, about learning about the northwest and just what it's capable of through Lancashire. It's not a place that I know terribly well, and yes, so the opportunity of joining the board was you know, this is what I haven't joined any other boards as yet, but this was an opportunity to get to know a place in a little bit of detail. And I must admit that I have, you know, had great opportunities to speak to a number of people, particularly at UCLan, also at Edge Hill and at Lancaster. Universities are obviously some of our major stakeholders, just what they're currently doing, and most importantly, what they want to do. And what's clear is obviously all of those institutions want to work on behalf of Lancashire as a place. Yes, EPSRC is a national funder, and we're part of this substantial organisation, UKRI, and we're a sister organisation to Innovate. And as being part of the board, I want there to be a really good and hopefully honest and open exchange between a locality like Lancashire and an organisation like mine, which is dealing with researchers and investments from all over the UK, so that what we do, based down at Swindon and also in London, can be more accessible. So one of the things I would like to achieve is more accessibility from some of those research institutes or facilities that we have in other parts of the UK that can complement what's available on your doorstep, so that people feel that they can not only reach out to perhaps a local institution, but actually have got some tentacles and ways into those institutions further afield. I think that's a challenge, as we've already talked about. It can be daunting, but we are investing so much in across a wide range of scientific areas, and it would be great to find ways to connect what's going on across the UK to a patch like Lancashire's, because, you know, as Tony said, the productivity agenda, the inclusion agenda, the well-being agenda for people is just so important at the moment, and will be as we go forward.
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. Emma's just said in the chat, you know, Lancashire has a long and distinguished history of embracing innovation and exploiting opportunities. And I guess for those of us who live and work in Lancashire, we recognise that, don't we? Recognise the great work that's going on, as well as it being a great place to live. And I guess most of us on the board, one of the things we'll be wanting to do is to share that message, spread that message, not only within Lancashire, but further afield. I mean, you must feel that, Claire, in terms of the significant work that your organisation does and the innovation that you've been involved with. And how do you get that out beyond the confines of, you know, your locality?
Yeah, I think that's quite a challenge, because you want it to be recognised, as Tony was touching on, by the locality, by customers on a global scale as well, because my company competes globally. So we want to be able to showcase what we do, but also Lancashire as a place to, you know, give your order here, give your business here, and you'll be well supported by people who can innovate processes and deliver a quality product, which is what we're all about. So I think it is a challenge getting the message out and badging it innovation, because going back to what we've previously spoke about, so much of what we do just happens by default. You know, we've got a lot of clever people, we've got a lot of well-established manufacturing processes, and they happen. And if someone makes a change to that, they don't necessarily know to shout about it. So, you know, going right round and looping this conversation, we've talked about having the people trained in best practice, understanding how to identify innovation. I think someone's put in the chat actually about, you know, it's around having mindset of critical thinking and creativity, and the leaders of organisations actively promoting that. So I think in terms of getting the message out, it's still a challenge. But, you know, from my session, I think I felt that the businesses would really welcome some support in shouting about what they do, because they're really proud of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's really critical, isn't it? That we, as I said before, act as a bit of a catalyst in a variety of ways. And this has certainly given us a rich agenda for the next few board meetings, I think, in terms of the discussion. That bit about us engaging and getting it out there. Gaynor, have you got any thoughts about how, you know, we can best engage with people outside of the board, but also how can they best engage with us?
I think that's an interesting question, Graham. And I mean, there's various things that I've seen work in other places, sort of having an innovation showcase, which can be sort of a platform. It could be through a newsletter, it could be through networking events. It's that sharing of best practice which has been raised so far. But it's got to be an engagement with the businesses that brings value. You know, we can't just put on a networking event for, you know, that doesn't actually contribute and bring value to those businesses. Time is precious. So I think we have to take the feedback from these sessions, and there's going to be so much valuable insight from the month of the events that have been happening in the festival, and take the feedback from the SMEs, from the entrepreneurs and the business owners, to see what they want and see what will be of value to them. And then we, as a board, we can collate that and work up the next steps and the actions that we can take forward to make sure that we are bringing this collaboration, this opportunity to really showcase what is happening and encourage more businesses to take that path.
Yeah, thanks. And I guess one of the things we need to do therefore is become very obvious, so that people know that we exist and we're out there, and to get some early highlights, I guess, that encourage people in terms of the value of the work of the board and the fact they want to engage with us. Jane, what are your thoughts in terms of your hopes for the Innovation Board moving forward?
Okay, so if I go back to the question about why did I join the board, I don't know, and I wasn't at all sure I did want to be on a board. I wasn't sure if it'd be stuffy and boring and over my head and all those things. I had all those doubts. I ran a grassroots social enterprise, and I didn't know what I would bring to it or what use it would be. But I am really glad I joined, and I think my situation is one that's probably very common. So we were the case study for SIMRA, the European Social Innovation project, and I was really confused because I just do what I do. I had no concept it was innovation. But I really learned, and it was fantastic being part of that. And that ownership of people taking ownership that what they are doing is innovative and are celebrating that. And I would like to see the board celebrating smaller companies or organisations and giving them a voice. British Aerospace, fabulous, but irrelevant to most people, I think, or we might think it is, I don't know. And I think we need to, and I would want us to do much more to celebrate and showcase the amazing bits that are going on all over Lancashire that rarely get highlighted, rarely get showcased. I think that would be a fabulous thing, and it would encourage others as well.
Yeah, we're very pleased you joined the board, Jane, and I think you've just really summed up much of that conversation, the conversation we've been having today. That point that you were doing this thing that you didn't realise was particularly innovative, and it's how do we make people aware of these innovations that then we can encourage them to share with others, so that we can then get that unlocking of the value that we were talking about. Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Somebody's mentioned in the chat about an innovation census. I mean, that would be quite a nice idea, wouldn't it? And, how do we as a board capture, what innovation is out there? I guess that follows on from when we've got the definition of it. Yeah. So, and somebody else encouraging, demonstrating the art of the possible, push boundaries, be bold. I guess that could be a strapline for the Innovation Board. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, sure. I think that there's some really good things. I mean, but just touching on a couple of things that was mentioned before. One of the things about innovation is that it can be a little bit random, and I think really taking innovation away from that sort of random aspect in terms of trying to make it a lot more consistent within businesses is a really important thing. And the simplification of access to innovation or through to universities. I know some people said earlier that access to universities was quite easy. It actually isn't. When you get involved and embroiled with stuff like NDAs and legal departments at universities, and Manchester is a prime example, it just puts people off. And I know that a lot of work has been done recently about trying to get that process simplified, but it still isn't simplified. So yeah, I think all the things you've actually said are really good. But if we can do some of those quick fixes, that would be, I think, of great benefit.
Yeah, some quick wins always help, don't they? I as somebody who works in the university, I couldn't agree with you more. I think accessibility and interrelationships with universities continue to be challenging for some, despite all the work that universities do. And I think we need to continue to work to try and simplify some of that. And I hope we are doing. And I think the universities in Lancashire have been successful at it, but I recognise there's still more work to be done. Claire, what about a final view from you as the Vice Chair of the Innovation Board in terms of future operation and aspiration before we begin to wrap up?
Yeah. I think we've got our work cut out in a positive way. I think this festival has been a great way to kick that off, because it's allowed us to get a lot of people's contributions on the table in one, 31-day slot, if you like, to then be able to start making sense of this. There's so much, adding to what Tony said, there's a challenge with GVA and productivity, and but we've got really strong foundations, and I think as Lancashire and the LEP, there's a strategy, and I think our role now with all that information is collating that and understanding how we best make use of it and put things in place, maybe using the digital organisations that we've got within our remits, the marketing Lancashire that we have access to, the universities, and really step up kind of this topic and start the collaboration. So perfect start, I think, to our journey. I would wrap up with, and great to have people having a voice and being so involved.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. And I would just want to echo much of what you've said there. There's some fantastic bodies and organisations across Lancashire that we can work with very, very closely. You've mentioned a few of those. I think we have got our work cut out, but I think, as you say, we're off to a great start. This festival has helped considerably, hasn't it, in terms of engaging with organisations and people and enabling an exchange of ideas, which we need to build upon. And as I said earlier, I think we've got some rich agenda items for the next few meetings in where we can discuss. For me, the takeaways, particularly in terms of the sum up today, this importance of the board being accessible, the board being open, and indeed innovation generally being more accessible, more understandable, more open. I think one of the challenges for us is to really come up with almost the simplest definition of innovation, because we've talked about the importance of innovation at all levels and the fact that innovation can take place where anywhere, basically. And it's a case of us ensuring that we identify those and then build on that in terms of our work. I like the idea of us acting in some ways as a bit of a catalyst. I think we definitely need to celebrate successes, and we need to work out ways in which we can identify those distinctive innovations that we particularly want to promote, that link with our strategic pillars, but also will put Lancashire on that national map where we all know, having lived and worked here, that it deserves to be. So you're right, an ambitious agenda, lots of really, really good work. But can I thank all my fellow colleagues from the board for your contribution throughout the festival, and particularly for your contribution today. And I would also personally like to thank Lancashire County Council, the Lancashire Enterprise Partnership, and the rest of our board members who couldn't be with us today, and look forward to working with them. And I will now hand back to Dan to formally close the session. But from me, thank you very much.
Thank you to Graham, and thank you to all the panel, the board, for joining us. Thanks to everybody that's joined in with all the sessions and continue to add to the conversation online through the hashtag LANIF2020. And I'd just like to spread a personal thanks to the team at Freeman Factory Marketing Lancashire, who've helped to bring this whole event together, and Maya Ellis, Matt Wright and Vanessa Robinson-Hoy in the background. Until next year then, and in the meantime, please do contact the Innovation Board. Thanks very much, and goodbye for now.
This October, you're invited to explore how you can harness innovation, consider new viewpoints and fresh ideas, and explore how learning, technology and innovation can come together. This brand new festival will champion some of Lancashire's latest innovations across 25 events, hosted by more than 50 speakers, including some of the county's innovation experts from higher education, health, clean technologies and many more. You can see the full schedule and register online for free at lancashireinnovationfestival.co.uk. So join us for a month of inspiration, collaboration and discovery around innovation.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh yeah.
I'm just trying to read this question
I think
from Jane. Was it answered?
I'm not sure it was. Jane, what I can do, I can get Jane's email address.
Okay.
Because it sounds like you'd probably be able to help.
Yeah.
That's
Sounds
right.
brilliant. Yeah.
Well, everyone's got, yeah, everyone happy with that?
Great. Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smashing. Well, everyone else has gone. I shall, as long as you're all happy, I'll let you crack on. Thanks very much, you all.
I love that you're the faceless voice of the festival, Dan. It's fantastic.
Well, I've been trying to earn myself a new career, Jane, voiceover artist.
I was going to say, you should, if there's a vacancy for Big Brother or something like that,
I might
come
see
dine with me.
Maybe Sean Bean's had enough of the O2 adverts.
Yeah.
Might be all right. Right.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I'll let you all go.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Take care,
Nice to meet
everybody.
you guys.
Bye-bye.
Speak to you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.